Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a journey into a really fascinating part of ancient Indian thought.
Yeah, philosophy, logic, epistemology, it's all in there.
Yeah.
We're looking at the Nyaya system.
Exactly. And our guide is a key text, the Tarkasangraha by Annambhatta.
That's the one. We're working from an English translation, the one by V.N. Shah, which has some great notes. It's often seen as, the introduction.
Right. And our mission really is to unpack this text. It looks quite concise, almost like a handbook on the surface.
Deceptively simple, maybe.
Yeah. But it digs incredibly deep into how this whole system views reality, everything that exists, and maybe more importantly, how we actually know things.
Absolutely. It's fundamentally about structuring knowledge, thinking critically. It gives you this very rigorous framework for categorizing absolutely everything.
Everything in the universe.
Pretty much. And then it provides the tools, the methods for figuring out how we gain genuine knowledge about all that stuff.
And it gets down to basics, doesn't it? Like, how do you logically pin down what a cow is? Or that classic example, how are you so sure there's fire just from seeing smoke?
Exactly. Those are the kinds of questions this system gives you a structure to answer very precisely.
Okay. So where do we start this deep dive? With the building blocks of reality itself.
I think that makes sense. Let's look at what they believe exists first, the fundamental entities, or padarthas as they call them. Then we can get into how we know about them.
Right, these padarthas, the Tarkasangraha says, you can basically categorize everything in the universe using them.
That's the idea. Reality for them is captured and understood through these linguistic categories. And they propose 7 fundamental types.
7, okay. What are they?
Right, so you have dravya, that's substance, then gutta, which is quality, karma, action, samanya, universal, visha, particularity.
Okay, substance, quality, action, universal, particular, that's 5.
Yep, then samavaya, which is inherence, and finally, abhava, absence.
Substance, quality, action, universal, particular, inherence, and absence. Wow, that sounds like it covers a lot of ground. Pretty exhaustive.
It is. It's a very comprehensive system. And you can think of them in 2 broad groups. The first 6 are positive entities, things that are there, so to speak.
Bhava, right.
Yes, bhava. And the 7th, absence of bhava, is the negative entity.
Hold on. Absence. Like the lack of something is a fundamental building block of reality.
Yes. And that's actually a really key point, and maybe a bit strange from, some other perspectives.
Definitely counterintuitive.
It is. But for them, absence isn't just nothing. It's not just in our heads. It's real. It's knowable, just as real as presence.
So if the book isn't on the table.
The absence of the book on the table is a real feature of the world at that moment. It's a negative entity, but an entity nonetheless, and you can perceive it.
That really shifts how you think about nothing.
Hmm.
Okay, fascinating. So let's dive into the first one. Substance, Dravya. What counts as a substance?
Substances are the main things, you could say. They're the foundation, the place where qualities and actions happen or reside. The text lists 9 specific types.
9 types of fundamental stuff. We've got the elements, I assume, earth, water, fire, air.
Exactly. Those are the first 4. Then comes ether, sometimes translated as sky or space filler, akasha. Then time, kala, and space, dik.
Okay, elements, ether, time, space, that's 7. What are the last 2?
They're the internal ones. Soul, Atman, and mind, manas.
Ah, okay. Soul and mind are considered substances too. So substances are the things that have qualities or do actions. What about qualities, Grid? You said there's a specific number.
Yes, the text lists exactly 24. 24 ganzas, and the definition is crucial. They are properties that can only exist in a substance. They don't float around on their own.
24 seems very specific. What kinds of things are on that list?
Well, it includes the obvious sensory ones: color, taste, smell, touch. But also things like number, size, separateness, conjunction, disjunction, remoteness, nearness, weight, fluidity, moisture, sound, and then, importantly, cognitive properties.
Cognitive properties, like thinking.
Yes. Cognition itself, pleasure, pain, desire, aversion, volition, or effort. Even things like merit, demerit, and what they call saskara, impressions or tendencies from past experience, all considered qualities.
So my feeling of happiness, or my thought process right now, those are qualities. Residing in which substance?
Residing in the soul, the Atman. That's the substance that experiences these cognitive qualities. The system is very clear about distinguishing the substance, like soul, from its qualities, like knowledge or pain.
Got it. And the source gives examples, right? Like smell defines earth.
Precisely. Smell is a quality that resides only in the substance earth. Hot touch is unique to fire, cold touch to water. It's very analytical.
Substance is the what? Quality is what it's like.
Okay, then action, karma.
Action is basically movement. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
The Tarkasangraha lists 5 types just to cover all bases. Throwing upwards, throwing downwards, contracting, expanding, and just general locomotion moving from A to B. So any kind of change in position.
Right. It always involves separating from one point in space and joining with another.
Okay, substance, quality, action.
Yeah.
That feels sort of tangible. Now, the next ones get a bit more abstract, maybe. Universal, samanya, and particular, vishya.
They are a bit more abstract, yes. Universal samanya is what lets us group things. It's the shared essence or class property. Think of cowness or potness.
The thing that makes this specific cow a cow, along with all other cows.
Exactly. And they see this universal as a single eternal thing that inheres, we'll get to that word, in all the individual members of the class.
Okay, so cowness is one eternal thing present in every single cow. In particular, vishya. This is where it gets really unique to this system, right?
Yeah.
Especially the Vaishika part.
Yes, this is fascinating. Vishya means particularity or ultimate differentiator. It was introduced to solve a specific problem. How do you tell apart eternal substances that are otherwise identical?
Like individual atoms or souls.
Precisely. Imagine 2 fundamental, indivisible, eternal atoms of Earth. They have the same substance, same qualities maybe. What makes this atom distinct from that atom forever?
There must be something.
Their answer is Visha. It's this intrinsic, unique feature that belongs only to that specific eternal substance, atom, soul, mind, ether, time, space, and distinguishes it from all others of its kind. It's the ultimate principle of individuality for eternal things.
Wow. So it's like an unshareable fingerprint for the fundamental eternal bits of reality.
That's a good way to think about it. It prevents everything from just collapsing into oneness at the most basic level. It guarantees plurality.
That's quite a concept. Okay, nearly there with the categories. Next is inherence, samavaya.
Samavaya. This is described as a permanent, intimate, inseparable relationship. And what's really interesting is that the relationship itself is considered a fundamental entity, a category of its own.
The relationship is an entity, not just the things being related.
Exactly. It's the link between, say, a substance and its qualities, like a piece of cloth and its blue color. You can't actually separate the blue from the cloth without destroying one or both, right?
Right.
That inseparable connection is inherence, samavaya. It also applies to the link between a universal, like cowness, and the individual cow it resides in, or between a whole object and its parts.
So it's not just saying the cloth is blue, but that the isness, the intimate link between them, is itself a real part of the furniture of the universe.
Precisely. And they argue it's one single eternal relationship type that manifests in all these inseparable connections. It really shows how meticulous they were trying to categorize every aspect of reality.
Okay. And the last category, number 7, we already touched on, absence Obama.
Yes, absence. The non-existence of something treated as a real, knowable fact about the world.
Like seeing no pot on the ground.
That perception of the absence of the pot is considered a valid cognition of a real, albeit negative, entity. They even break down absence into different types, but the core idea is its reality.
Incredible. So these 7 categories, substance, quality, action, universal, particular, inherence, and absence, are the fundamental constituents of everything. That's the ontology.
That's their map of what exists, yes.
But knowing what's out there is only half the story, isn't it?
Yeah.
The other crucial part is how we know any of this reliably, the epistemology.
Exactly. And that's the second major focus of the Tarkasangraha, analyzing cognition. The system accepts 4 valid means of acquiring true knowledge, 4 pramojas.
4 ways to know the truth. What are they?
They are perceptual knowledge, pratyaka, inferential knowledge, anumana, analogical knowledge, upamana, and verbal knowledge, shabda.
Okay, let's take those one by one. Perceptual pratyaka. That sounds like simply seeing, hearing, touching, direct experience.
It is. It's defined as the knowledge that arises directly from the contact between a sense organ and its object, like your eye connecting with a flower.
Simple enough.
Well, the text actually goes into different kinds of sense-object contact needed to perceive different things, physical contact for seeing color or touching texture, but also more complex types of contact for perceiving universals, like cowness in a cow, or even for perceiving absence.
Ah, so even perceiving no pot involves a kind of contact.
A specific kind of contact, yes. The details get intricate, but the core is direct sensory input leading to knowledge. My eyes see the red flower, leading to the cognition, this is a red flower.
Got it. What about the second one? Inferential knowledge, Anumana. This is the famous smoke and fire one, isn't it?
It is. It's the classic example. Inference is how we know something we don't directly perceive based on something we do perceive, the sign or head to, like smoke, because we know there's an invariable connection between the two.
An invariable connection. Vyapti, right?
Vyapti, exactly. That rule that says wherever there's smoke, there's fire. You have to have established that rule through previous observation.
Okay, so walk me through the smoke on the mountain example using their steps.
Right. So first, you perceive the smoke on the mountain. That's perception. Second, you remember the rule, the vyapti. Wherever smoke, there fire, which you learned, say, in your kitchen.
Okay, perception, then memory of the rule.
Third, you have a kind of synthesis. You recognize that this smoke you're seeing now on the mountain is an instance of smoke that is invariably connected to fire. It falls under the rule.
You apply the rule to the specific case.
Exactly. And fourth, from that recognition, the conclusion arises. The inferential knowledge, therefore, there is fire on the mountain.
Observation, memory, application, conclusion. It's very logical, very structured.
It is. And the source even details a 5-step argument they used to prove an inference to someone else, essentially a formal syllogism. They were serious about logical proof.
And they also worried about getting it wrong, didn't they? About fallacies.
Oh, absolutely. A significant part of the discussion on inference deals with hetvabhasa, fallacious middle terms or reasons, errors in the sign or the rule that make the inference invalid.
Like seeing steam rising from a hot spring and thinking it's smoke from a fire.
Exactly. That would be a fallacy because the supposed sign, steam looking like smoke, isn't actually invariably connected to the thing you're trying to infer. Fire? The vyapti doesn't hold in that case. They had detailed ways of classifying these logical errors.
Shows a real concern for rigor. Okay, so we have perception, direct sense, inference, reasoning from signs. What are the other two? Analogy and verbal testimony.
Yes. Analogical knowledge, Upamana, is knowing something new through comparison or similarity.
How does that work?
The classic example is someone tells you a gavaya, wild ox, is like a cow. You've never seen one. Later, you're in the forest, you see an animal that looks very much like a cow.
And you think, that must be a gava.
Exactly. You gained knowledge of what a gavaya is by recognizing the similarity described in the initial statement. It's learning by comparison.
Like someone describing a zebra as like a horse, but with stripes. Use the known horse, plus the differentiating feature, stripes, based on their testimony.
Precisely. It's knowledge from similarity based on reliable testimony about that similarity.
Okay. And the final one. Verbal knowledge, shabda. Knowledge from words, from hearing or reading. This must be huge.
It is fundamental, obviously. It's how we learn most complex things. The system defines it as understanding the meaning of a sentence spoken or written by a trustworthy source, EPTA.
But not just any string of words gives knowledge, right? There are rules.
Yes, very specific conditions. For a sequence of words to count as a proper sentence and provide valid knowledge, it needs 3 things. Akakta, expectancy, yogyata, compatibility, and sanidhi, proximity.
Expectancy, compatibility, proximity. Can you break those down simply?
Sure. Expectancy means the words need each other grammatically. If I just say cow, horse, man, elephant, the words don't expect each other to form a complete thought. It's just a list.
Right. It doesn't convey a relationship or action.
Exactly. Compatibility means the meaning has to make sense. It can't be logically absurd or contradict what we know. The example often given is, he wets the ground with fire. That lacks compatibility because fire inherently burns and dries, it doesn't wet.
So the concepts themselves have to fit together.
Correct. And proximity just means the words have to be delivered close enough together in time and space. If I say bring today and the book next week, there's no proximity, no connection is formed, no sentence understood.
Okay, so the words need grammatical connection, logical sense, and timely delivery. That makes perfect sense.
If those 3 conditions are met and the source is reliable, then verbal testimony, shadda, is considered a valid means of true knowledge. It shows how much they thought about language and meaning.
It really does. So we've covered the 7 categories of what exists and the 4 ways they believed we could reliably know about those things: perception, inference, analogy, and language.
That's the core framework presented in the Tarkasangraha, yes.
That's just incredibly systematic, trying to map out all of reality and all the ways we interact with it.
It really is. And the Tarkasangraha does a remarkable job for such a short text.
of laying out this complex system clearly. It gives you that analysis of reality, the ontology, the analysis of knowledge, the epistemology.
And the emphasis seems to be constantly on making distinctions, on clarity. That vijja concept, the different types of absence, the conditions for language.
Absolutely. Precision matters. Distinctions matter because for them, knowledge is the key. Understanding reality correctly is crucial. Even knowing absence is important.
So, recapping this deep dive into Annambhatta's Tarkasangraha, we've seen this Nyaya Vaishika view of the universe built on 7 pillars: substance, quality, action, universal, particular, inherence, and surprisingly, absence.
We looked at the 9 substances, the elements, ether, time, space, soul, mind, the 24 specific qualities, including cognitive ones, the 5 types of action or movement.
And then the 4 ways of knowing: direct perception, logical inference, like the smoke fire example, learning through analogy, and understanding language based on expectancy, compatibility, and proximity. It's a whole system for understanding the world and our knowledge of it.
It really gives you an appreciation for the intellectual ambition behind it all, building this comprehensive structure centuries ago.
Definitely. It's a distinct philosophical approach. And importantly, this whole project of understanding reality and knowledge isn't just an academic exercise in their view. It connects to the ultimate purpose of life.
Ah, right. And this is where the source leaves us with something quite stark, maybe. A really provocative final thought.
It is quite striking. The Nyaya Vaishika system, as reflected in texts like this, posits that the ultimate goal, the highest aim of human existence, isn't actually happiness or pleasure.
Not the pursuit of happiness. What is it then?
It's the absolute cessation of pain, the complete and final end of suffering.
Wow. Why? What's their reasoning?
Well, within the discussion of the soul and its qualities like pleasure and pain, the argument is essentially that pleasure is always temporary, it's fleeting, it inevitably ends, or we lose the object causing it, and that very loss, that transience, leads back to pain or dissatisfaction.
So pleasure itself is seen as inherently linked to eventual suffering.
In a way, yes, because it doesn't last. Therefore, the only truly stable, desirable end state isn't chasing fleeting pleasures, but achieving mukti, liberation, which they define as the permanent stopping of all pain.
The ultimate goal is the cessation of suffering, full stop, not maximizing good feelings. How does that frame everything else? What does that mean for how you view the pursuit of knowledge or even just living day to day if the ultimate target is getting rid of the bad rather than gaining the good?
It definitely casts things in a different light, doesn't it?
Yeah. Does that resonate at all with, modern life? Or does it feel like a completely different way of looking at what we're all striving for? Is pain avoidance really the ultimate driver, or is there more to it?
It's a fundamental question about values and the human condition, really.
Something to definitely think about as you continue your own deep dives.